Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the MPA process, Joel Young.
Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. And welcome to part 3 of Secrets to Rocking Your 2020 Intentions, so they actually have an impact and get you what you want. Now, normally this podcast goes out on every Tuesday, but as part of my mission to raise the standards of goal setting as we enter 2020, I wanted to get this 4-part training out to you before we get too far into January. So this Friday's episode is a bonus. Yay! So if you remember, I made you quite a bold promise at the start of this training that simply by listening to this series of 4 episodes, you're going to be able to radically shift how you approach goal setting or intention setting to a whole new level, such that what you envision for yourself in 2020 is truly connected, truly aligned, and therefore has way more chance of actually manifesting this year. So what I'm going to share with you today in part 3, well, it could well be a huge revelation for you. It certainly felt that way when this piece dropped into place for me. And while this part of the bigger picture does often feature in approaches to manifesting and goal setting, its true nature and how to work with it effectively is rarely taught. In fact, I go so far as to say that I haven't actually come across it anywhere else. And actually, some of the ways I've seen it approached are downright counterproductive, at least, well, that's been my experience anyway. So part 3 is called A Matter of Time, Your Relationship to 2020. And I do believe that there are a lot of aha bombs to be had in this episode. But before we get into that, I have a question for you. I wonder if you've noticed the theme that underpins all that juicy content I've shared in parts 1 and 2. Well, whether you're going, nope, totally missed it, or you think you nailed it, and now you're kind of gagging to know if you're right. Oh, it's tempting. But I'm going to resist the urge to have an X Factor moment and make you wait while tension-building music plays in the background. So I'll tell you right now, it's the theme of approaching intentions and manifesting in wholeness. You see, most of the teaching on this topic focuses on one or only a select part of the whole of you. And while that can work, it doesn't allow you to access the full power, the full focus that's available to you. And in some cases, it can actively undermine that power and focus. That's why you get those underwhelming results from your efforts. So in the first 12 years or so of my career in the transformation industry, I met and taught all kinds of manifesting techniques. I trained with and worked alongside some of the top luminaries in the field of mind, body, spirit, healing and spirituality, whether it is from cognitive approaches to what would be considered more far out or woo-woo end of the spectrum. Now, all of that was valid. All of it had an impact. And the experiences I had have been really invaluable to me. And yet, although there were kind of nods towards or platitudes around wholeness, somehow none of it really embodied that. So I felt that somewhere deep inside a sense of polarization lurked. Like some part of me had to sit this one out. It's like it hadn't been picked for the team, so it couldn't join in the game. Q very sad and sometimes quite miffed and, well, maybe a lot disruptive in a Joel. I don't know, have you ever had that experience where you've been sidelined on some activity and you're looking on at them struggling with some knotty challenge and you're thinking, well, the solution to me is pretty bloody obvious. Well, fortunately, I had a wake-up call and all that changed, along with the direction of my career 13 years ago when the philosophy and practice that I call non-personal awareness, or MPA for short, was literally given to me by the grace of God, or the universe, if you prefer that terminology. And at their heart, the philosophies and practices of MPA put wholeness front and center. So that's what I've been teaching in rooms and online around the world for the past 13 years. And it's why I have been and will continue today to show you ways to acknowledge, include, and bring together all of you and all aspects of the manifesting system or the manifestation system. So, whatever tools you use, be it vision boarding, visualizations, affirmations, or whatever, you can fully access your innate manifesting power and make full use of that universal energy that creates worlds without breaking a sweat. And by the way, not leave some part of you crying on the bench. So if you could approach your intentions for 2020 in wholeness, include all of you in an aligned, united, and powerful way as you turn your attention to what you'd like to experience this year, and you could feel through that deep connectedness that your intentions had real oomph, real power, to the point where you actually might become very discerning about what you choose to focus on. Is that something you'd be willing to commit to? Well, if the answer is yes, then stay with me as we dive into today's lessons, where I'll show you how you can meet the time element of intentionality from a wholeness perspective, so that what you focus on is in a state of readiness to respond to your intentions. Now, as this is part 3, if you haven't yet listened to parts 1 and 2, I highly recommend you stop right now and go listen to them. They're really required listening for anyone who wants to rock their 2020 vision. And I really want you to get the full value of this training, so go listen to those episodes in order. Don't worry, I'll be waiting for you here. We're, just shy of about 7 minutes into this episode, so you can come right back to this point when you've caught up. So, in the first 2 parts of this training, I taught you about the importance of understanding that when it comes to intentions and manifesting, there's an energetic, interconnected system where all parts matter. And how it's when all those parts are lined up with the right ingredients in place that the magic happens. In other words, when you get this in order, when everything is in place, your intentions become reality, you see actual results, and those dreams you've been dreaming start coming true without you needing to force it or expend much of your energy at all. So, using the analogy of the sun's energy focused through a magnifying glass to ignite a fire, in part 1 I shared how energy first is the mindset that underpins it all. So you have to start with the right source, because the flavor of that energy is what gets magnified by your focus. And if it's not aligned, then you're just magnifying misalignment. And that energy, if you think about it, goes right through all parts of the system. It's the power source, but it also flows through the magnifying glass, to continue the metaphor. And it's what catalyzes the transformation of what it touches in this material world of form. Which brings us to what I covered in part 2, which is that you are the magnifying glass, but there are in fact many selves within you. So I shared how the MPA multiple perspectives map allows you a simple, quick, and powerful way to bring all those disparate parts of you, the wholeness of you, into alignment. So you have that all-important focus, which intensifies the power of the energy, again, without having to expend a lot of energy, or for that matter, go through 10 more years of therapy. Bonus, right? And that brings us to the third part of the system, which I described as a target that will be responsive to the focused energy. And here's where it gets interesting, especially when it comes to time constructs like the year 2020. So before we unravel that little beauty, I want to thank so many of you actually who did tune into parts 1 and 2. If you remember, I told you last time that part 1 had the most listens in a week that I've ever had since I started this podcast. Well, right now, it's only a couple of days since part 2 went live. That was Tuesday evening, about 6:15. And I'm recording this episode Thursday afternoon. It's 2:47 right now. And in that less than 48 hours, the number of listens has almost matched the weekly record. And I love that, because it lets me know that you're engaged and keen to hear the next part of the training. So you're obviously feeling and getting the value that I'm offering here. And that's also confirmed by some of the great feedback I've been getting, which, of course, I so appreciate. And I love hearing how you've been implementing what I've been sharing. In fact, I heard from two people who used the multiple perspectives map from part 2 and used it in really interesting and actually quite similar ways. So Charlotte from here in the UK, who helps women have empowered birthing experiences, told me how she decided to go back to the memory of her own birth and look at it from each of the perspectives, which she found brought more love and healing into that experience. And similarly, a lady in Australia told me that she took the multiple perspectives back to 6 core, challenging and foundational memories she was aware of, and found that bringing the wholeness to them brought a lightness to them that she hadn't experienced before. And she'd worked on them with many other modalities. Now, I love the implementation and action taken here. Implementation really takes things to the next level. And I also love that they recognize that while I'm focusing here on sort of 2020 and intentions, because the work comes from and is rooted in wholeness, it can be applied in so many wonderful ways. And when I come to next Tuesday, when I tell you what I've got planned, if you'd like help actioning all of this for your 2020 vision, you'll see that what I'm offering actually has the potential to be applied in ways that go way beyond the 2020 timeframe. Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself again. But I just wanted to say thank you for being here and your feedback and participation. It means a lot to me. I did mention the 2020 timeframe, so let's get into that now. So the third part of the system, as I said, it's a target that will be responsive to the focused energy. Now, fair warning, I'm about to give you a very high fiber technical download, but don't worry. If technical's not your bag, I'm going to follow up with the poetry of metaphor. Now, some people love the tech and some people love a metaphor. I love both, actually. But more importantly, I really want you to get this bit. So a target that will be responsive to the focused energy. Well, you may well have thought when you heard that in parts 1 and 2 that the target I was referring to was the stuff, the car, the house, the new relationship, etc. Well, I guess that in some manifesting situations that may be the case. However, when it comes to goals, intentions, and visioning, the target I'm referring to is the time period. So for your 2020 vision, if you think about it, you're actually focusing your intentions on the year 2020. So then begs the question, so what is the year 2020? Well, ultimately, just like everything we experience, it's a construct, an idea, a thing, not a physical form, but a form nonetheless. So you've likely heard the phrase, everything is energy. Now, there's a lot of quantum mechanics behind that statement, which I don't have time to go into today. But take my word for it, whatever thing, form, construct, or idea you interact with or experience is fundamentally a defined block of energy. Now, this understanding, this awareness is really useful in terms of slotting a time block in its wholeness into our 3-part system. So now if we define 2020 as a block of time, which is actually a block of energy, we can see it as a singular thing. In other words, we can interact with it in its wholeness. Okay, now that's a pretty rich stream of information, so take a breath and relax. I'm going to give it to you metaphorically in a moment, but there's another piece of the puzzle to address first, because you may well be asking, okay, time block, got it, but what about the stuff? I want my stuff. Show me the stuff. Well, I want you to think about it in terms of substrate. Okay, so a Petri dish is a good example of a substrate. All sorts of lovely jubbly stuff can show up in a Petri dish, depending on the substrate, that's the jelly bit, and what you put in it. Plus, the Petri dish is a good example here because it's something you use when you want a specific outcome in a contained, or you could say defined, space. And if you think about it, when you're doing your 2020 intentions, you want things to happen within a defined time period. But why not just focus on the stuff? Well, now's a good time, I guess, to go back into the metaphor. So remember, I was 8 years old with a magnifying glass on a sunny day and out to make fire. Did I go out looking for fire to focus the sun's rays on? No, I did not. In a patchwork field of green and golden grass, I found a gold one, a dry one, a blade of grass that was ripe and ready to be responsive to the intensive focus of the sun's rays. It provided all the ingredients and conditions that meant that when I lined things up, I got my fire. My intention was fire, yes, but everything in the system was lined up and in the right condition to be responsive, so the intention became manifest effortlessly. Okay, so now you're probably asking yourself, okay, so green grass, gold grass, I get that, but 2020 is a year. It is what it is, right? Well, no, not really. Not when you enter the magic world of energy. Remember what I said earlier, 2020 is a block of time, which is actually a block of energy. So we can see it as a singular thing. In other words, we can interact with it in its wholeness. And an interesting thing about the study of the energetic nature of the universe is it turns out that, well, everything is connected, but perhaps more importantly here, it's the relationship between energies that affects them at the most fundamental level. So your relationship to 2020 is actually what most affects your experience of it as a whole. 2020 is not inert to you. So whether 2020 to you is a blade of green grass, and going back to the metaphor, that probably would have got a bit singed, but wouldn't have produced fire, or 2020 is ripe, golden, ready to blaze grass, which will manifest your intentions lickety-split, is going to be a function of your relationship to the energy of 2020. Now, maybe you're thinking, how the heck do I get a fix on my relationship with the energy of 2020? Or maybe you're thinking, that's just bonkers. Well, firstly, if you listen to my podcast, I actually doubt that you think the idea of energetic relational dynamics between things, including constructs, is bonkers, because I talk about that a lot. But if you can just drop your old Newtonian logic and be playful about it, you might be surprised what comes to you. And when it comes to things you might want to get sorted relationally with 2020, so it's super receptive to your intentions, then like most relationships, you're going to want to firstly identify and resolve any conflict, and secondly, have a clear sense of what you want to do together. Now, on Tuesday in part 4, I'm going to let you know how you can easily do that. In fact, get the whole system lined up. But right now we've covered a lot of ground, so I want to sum it all up for you. So today I've shared how the target of your focus I've been talking about is a time frame, in this case the year 2020. And like a substrate, your intentions will grow out of it when the conditions are right. Also, how 2020 is an energy, how you're in relationship with it, and the condition of your relationship to it is the key factor in how responsive it is to your intentions. And the good news is that shifting energetic relationships like this is easier than you might think. People do it every day all over the world with MPA, or more specifically the MPA process, and no doubt with other techniques. So now we get the full system. It's a powerful and appropriate energy source, one that is clear and supports the intention, your whole self lined up so it can really focus that energy onto the energy of 2020, where the relationship between you and it is resonant, harmonious, and clear. Ta-da! So now you've got the whole picture, and that concludes the free training part of this series. And I have absolutely loved creating and sharing these episodes with you. And I know these free training sessions have already made a big impact on many people who've contacted me, and maybe it's even helped you. Now that you know the system, you may be wondering what it takes to really put it all into action, to get all the pieces in order and in place, so you can put specific actions into place that truly rock your 2020 intentions. And I hope you've realized any time frame that you choose to focus on that will work for, be it a week, a month, a season, a lead up to some big event. There's so many applications. Well, I think I've definitely given you a lot to chew on. And from these free trainings, I know it's possible to put things in motion and make an impact in your life because people have already shared with me how they have. And I love that because that was always really part of my intention. However, I also know that many of you would likely want more support and would love it if I could give you a clear, mapped out, actionable way to apply this in your life so you could easily ensure that you have the right energy source, are focused in wholeness and in harmony with the energy of 2020. And if you could apply that map to any time frame, then that would be the icing on the cake, right? Well, action is key. So I want you to imagine who you'll be and what you'll experience when you put this map into action in your life, when you feel deeply aligned and in tune with yourself and the universe, when you start to see those intentions appear like alchemy in the landscape of your life. Well, if you're interested in taking this even further and taking the next step, in letting me help you get and experience this actionable map, I've put together a special offer which I'm going to tell you about in part 4 on Tuesday. Now, what I will say now is that it's a one-day experiential online workshop I'm calling the 2020 Vision Accelerator. And it'll take place on Sunday, 19th of January, and you can participate wherever you are in the world. Now, the live course, it'll be recorded. And while I very much encourage you to be there if you can, if you can't be there, then you can still register as long as you do it before the cart closes and benefit from all the recordings, the worksheets and the instructions. So you still get all of the actionable resources that you can put into place in your life. So I'll be opening registration soon. And there'll be just a few days to book your place, and I'll have to close the registration before the day of the workshop. I'll have lots of details about it upcoming in the next episode. It's the 2020 Vision Accelerator. I'll be letting you know how you can join me in part 4. So tune into this podcast next Tuesday. That's the 14th of January. And in the meantime, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions about what I've shared or queries about the upcoming course, just get in touch. I read it all and I get back to you personally. As ever, you can leave me a voice message right on the beabrillianthuman.com website. Just click the big message me button. They're all over the place. Or you can hit me up on social media. The best place usually is Facebook. You can find the page by searching MPA Rocks there on Facebook. And also in the show notes, I'll put a specific link to a post where you can also leave comments. On the other social media platforms, for the most part, you'll find me as Joel Young MPA, at Joel Young MPA. On YouTube, it's just Joel Young. It's also called Be a Brilliant Human, the channel there. And look out for the next few emails from me because they'll give you details. And you can always email me, just as many of you have already, just hit reply on the email and you can get back to me, ask your questions, give me your feedback, whatever. And of course, if you're not yet on my email list, then get ye on it. Simplest way to do that is to sign up for the free MPA sheet, which is a great idea anyway. And you'll find links to that dotted around all of my websites, actually, but certainly on the Be a Brilliant Human website. It'll just say MPA sheet around there. You can click that and sign up. That'll get you on my mailing list so you can hear about what's coming up. And of course, if you like this training and found it useful, why not give me a thumbs up? Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and get notified of the next part when it comes out. And I'd love it if you're willing to share this with your friends as well. All right, phew. Right, I think I'm cooked for today. So do get in touch and join me for part 4 on Tuesday. And for now, let's cue the moo.